Funding for the production of Folks is provided in part by the Friends of LPB.
Up front today, Genevieve Stewart takes us on a trip through time as she talks with Dr. Joseph Cohen, chairman of the Jewish Studies program at Tulane University, about Louisiana's Jewish community. Our one-to-one segment takes us to Hammond, where we'll be talking to Mayor Debbie Pope, the first woman ever to hold down that post there. Our Something Extra segment today focuses on a very special program for kids called the Big Buddy Program. Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Hinton, and we'll have those stories today on Folks.
Everybody says folks.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Folks. Up front today, a fascinating look through time at Louisiana's Jewish community. Genevieve Stewart has been working on this story, and she's here with us today to tell us what she's found out. Genevieve?
Rob, Louisiana's Jewish communities are very assimilated now, so they're primarily identified by their beautiful and often historic temples of worship, or synagogues, such as Touro Synagogue in New Orleans, one of the country's oldest. It is there that I spoke with Dr. Joseph Cohen, chairman of Tulane University's Jewish Studies program. The story of Louisiana's Jewish communities begins in New Orleans and spreads upriver from there. The early Jewish settlers were merchants of Spanish and German descent. They entered the port of New Orleans in the 1800s. During the first 100 years of New Orleans development, Louisiana's black codes not only restricted slave behavior, but prohibited the settlement of Jews, as Dr. Cohen explains.
There was another problem in 1723-24, the Black Code was promulgated, which set conditions for slavery, but also had a provision in it precluding the settlement of Jews in Louisiana. As this was widely known throughout the Atlantic world, Jews were not tempted to come to this region of the country.
The black codes were relaxed and amended for Jews following the Louisiana Purchase. The Jewish migration began and assimilation soon followed. By 1835, there were 125 Jewish families in New Orleans.
The Sephardic Jews who began arriving just after the Louisiana Purchase were rather easygoing. They were not pious Jews. They did not take their religion all that seriously. These were mainly males. They intermarried in the Catholic Creole community, were not themselves baptized, but had their children baptized, and their children were reared within the church. They got along beautifully with their Christian neighbors and relatives, but remained Jews in the sense that they did not disavow their Judaism and were willing to support the fledgling Jewish causes as they began to develop.
And for the young Jewish settlers, were there problems of anti-Semitism?
No, New Orleans was remarkable for its degree of tolerance. The city was wide open. It was both a port town and a river town, and it attracted all kinds of people. And the easygoing ambience of the city that we speak of today was already apparent in its earliest years. And because it was flourishing and was developing, all peoples were welcomed here. And the Jews who came found themselves found very comfortable and hospitable surroundings, and they just sort of melded into the fabric of New Orleans society.
Between 1835 and the 1880s, Louisiana's Jews prospered and grew with synagogues and Hebrew benevolent associations. Synagogues spread to Lake Charles and the Congregation Sinai. Shreveport, where city officials donated land for a Jewish cemetery, and Alexandria, where this temple adjoined a Christian church, and the first Touro Synagogue in New Orleans, founded in 1828. Good relations between Christians and Jews flourished until the Reconstruction period following the Civil War. As the defeated Confederacy rebuilt its social order, Jews were excluded.
A number of Eastern European Jews came to New Orleans. This changed the whole complexion of the New Orleans Jewish community at that time, and it meant that the free and easy associations which had existed between the Jewish community and the non-Jewish community at that time were strained rather considerably. At the same time, a large number of Italians were also coming to New Orleans. The immigrant community here was growing not just from the influx of Jews, but from many different peoples. And their arrival coincided with the regaining of the power of the aristocracy, which largely was symbolized by the crew of Comus. And whereas Jews had the run of the Boston Club and of the other private clubs in the late 19th century, by 1910, because the aristocracy had pretty much closed ranks, Jews were then excluded from participation in the most prestigious of the Carnival organizations, and Momus, Comus, and Proteus, and a number of others, and these organizations to this day are still restricted in that sense. And other Carnival organizations followed suit. And the spirit of tolerance and the spirit of cooperation, which had persisted for so long here, disappeared.
In spite of anti-Semitic social snubs, Jewish charity, philanthropy, and businesses maintained their contributions to Louisiana's growth. Names such as Leonard Crower and Gus Meyer are now household words. Leon Godshaw founded his department store on Canal Street. Albert Godshaw sweetened the Louisiana economy and our tables with Godshaw's sugar. Judah Touro, who died in 1854, used his immense fortune to set the precedent for Jewish philanthropy. The public is still benefiting today. Judah Touro was the leading light and principal contributor to New Orleans' Touro Infirmary. This now modern hospital is celebrating its 130th birthday by treating over 5 million patients. Dr. Cohen explains why these men and other Jews became prominently involved in civic and cultural projects.
There were other ramifications to it as well, because so many of the important members of the establishment devoted so much of their time and their resources, say, to the planning of the carnival balls and the pageants and the parades and so on. A lot of our other institutions in the community were neglected. Jews turned their attention to these cultural institutions which had been neglected and were they had an enormously important role in the development of the New Orleans Symphony and in the museum, the New Orleans Museum of Art, which was known formally as the Isaac Delgado Museum. They found an outlet for their energies and their resources in helping to develop these cultural institutions, because the social activity at the highest level tied in with Mardi Gras had been denied to them.
Although many carnival clubs have now included Jews, Dr. Cohen states that the older carnival crews and restricted country club memberships are the last bastions of anti-Semitism in Louisiana.
With the recent development of new carnival organizations and a whole new spirit of carnival, the anti-Semitism, which persisted and indeed is not entirely gone today, has come to be less meaningful. The power of the old guard, you see, has been greatly diminished, so that they do not need to be taken as seriously now as they once were.
What would you account for that?
Well, I think that so long as that old guard was fairly much in control of the city, and that isn't to say that they were involved in the day-to-day government, but they represented the power and the wealth of the community, and so long as what I refer to as the Mardi Gras syndrome was dominant, that is, the city did not move forward. It lived in the past. So it was a lovely romantic illusion, but it meant that Atlanta and Dallas and Houston surged ahead at a time when many people in this community were not addressing its needs and recognizing its goals and trying to help it achieve the potential.
Louisiana's Jews have contributed richly to our cultural and educational institutions, our economy, and our social consciousness. Through groups like the B'nai B'rith, the Jewish Federation, and the Anti-Defamation League, and a new liberal business community, the spirit of tolerance has almost come full circle again in Louisiana.
Power has shifted rather considerably from that old aristocracy to new entrepreneurs who simply are not going to be submissive to an outmoded social convention. And I think Carnival is much healthier, and the city's much healthier, and of course the progress that's now being made has also contributed to a return, I think, of more of that spirit of tolerance. And one would hope that even the old line Carnival crews would recognize that their attitude in that respect is outmoded, and that it is, and the role that they might be playing is a lot less significant than if they recognize what New Orleans is all about today.
Perhaps more of our public officials and people in prominent positions will take the lead by setting an even better example of the meaning of brotherhood for all races and religions.
It's time now for our one-to-one segment, which this week features Debbie Pope of Hammond. To the nearly 18,000 residents of Hammond, she is Mayor Pope, the first woman ever to hold that job. But as a child growing up there, being mayor never entered her mind.
Every vocational test I ever took, I was supposed to be a mechanic. That's the truth. You know all those tests you took in school? Something to do with my hands. I wound up in college. I've got a BA in art with a French minor. And how I ever wound up here, I don't know.
Debbie Pope was elected mayor back in 1981. At the time, she promised the residents of Hammond that she would be a full-time mayor.
I started with the city of Hammond in February of 1974 as a secretary, which I had also vowed I would never do. And I worked with the city, and I enjoyed working for the city. And 7 years after that, I was considering some sort of promotion, and we have such a small organization in the administration part that I really had nowhere to move up to but maybe the position of mayor. And I was doing a lot of the work or duties that go along with being mayor at that time in the position that I was in, which was kind of a jack of all trades, and consequently I thought I'd give it a shot.
What does being mayor of the city of Hammond mean to you?
Being mayor to me is not because of a status position. The title certainly gives you responsibilities and avenues that normally an individual wouldn't have. But I was born and raised here. I truly have a sincere interest in the city of Hammond. My overall goal was to attempt to get the city back on a direct course with a particular goal in mind, with adequate surplus to do planning for the future. And what I walked into was almost a nightmare. There were discrepancies everywhere. We were not in the best financial position. We got a sales tax passed under my administration. We've been awarded several state and federal grants for improvements. And I guess that's what being mayor means to me, is trying to better the community as a whole, because I intend to live here the rest of my life, whether I'm in this position or not. And I've always taken an interest in Hammond. I guess I always will.
What does the distinction of being the first woman mayor of Hammond mean to you?
It's quite a feat. I'm to my knowledge, the only female mayor in the state of Louisiana of a city of this size. There's about 4 or 5 of us in the whole state of Louisiana. It certainly is an honor to be such, but I didn't base my campaign on male against female. Qualifications, issues, those sorts of things are the reason I wanted people to vote for me, not because I was a woman. But it certainly, the publicity alone has been very good for the city of Hammond. We've had national coverage, and you know, even though we're considered maybe a small town, in our opinion, we have as much to offer as a large city. Maybe I'm prejudiced or biased, but we truly feel that we do. We've got some of the best restaurants and best retail you could ever ask for.
Tell me, what aspect of your job do you find the most challenging?
Ooh. That's very difficult to answer. There's so many situations that come up from day to day that you really don't know what to do to resolve it, particularly if it's a problem. I've learned maybe the hard way how to deal with larger problems as opposed to day-to-day situations. It's a matter of looking at both sides, hearing both sides, see how many people it's going to affect, because everything you do in government is like a chain reaction. It affects somebody somewhere. And to weigh all that out to do for the majority of the people, what's going to help the majority of the people. And I guess that's the hardest thing.
Okay. What about most rewarding?
Rewarding? Well, our population has increased. We've gotten our initials on some of the weather maps throughout the state, you know. We've made a lot of improvements in our community thanks to the public for voting in a sales tax. We've overlaid our streets. We're doing major drainage, sewer improvements, water improvements, recreation, anything that has been neglected for so many years because the money simply wasn't there. In addition, we've attracted large industries, increased employment for our local people, and we're very attractive. We're one of few cities in the United States, I think one of 7, that has intersecting interstates. We have rail access and we have air. We have a wonderful airport that's upcoming on the east end of town. The only access we don't have is really water access. We're very attractive to the retail market and industrial market, predominantly, say, in the warehousing field. They can ship out of here quicker than anywhere and cover the entire southeast United States, right from Hammond, Louisiana. Our hospitality and friendliness, I think, is very attractive. We've got a good quality of life for families and their children. Our school systems are definitely improving. We've got new people moving in all the time. We consider ourselves a very unique small town.
This is an election year in Hammond, and Debbie Pope is seeking re-election. Residents will be voting for or against her record. But how does Pope evaluate her own performance?
I'm my own worst critic. I'm critical of the things I do. If I had a lot to do over, I probably would do them differently. But I'm also hard-headed enough to learn it the hard way. I think overall, without nitpicking individual instances that probably have been detrimental maybe to my political career, I do believe overall it'd be hard to point the finger and say she didn't do this or didn't do that. I committed things from the last campaign that I have been successful in accomplishing because I knew I could reach them. They were not unreasonable. I think the city is in in good shape at this point in more ways than one. Some of it probably would have happened, but a lot of it happened because I was sitting here. I committed to be full-time, which the city's never had a full-time mayor in the history of Hammond. And I think that alone, the fact that I'm accessible to the people, makes all the difference in the world to how this business, the city government, is being run.
What do you see in the future for Debbie Pope and the city of Hammond?
I would like to continue the projects that we've started under the sales tax, in that I feel like that was kind of my baby because I pushed it to get it through. There were commitments that we made to the public that I want to make absolutely sure come to pass. And in order to do that, I need to be sitting here. In addition, we want to also look at additional industry, clean industry, to increase the employment in our area. Our sales tax continues to grow on an average of 10% per year increase. Additional street improvements, water, sewer. I'm beginning to be recognized in the state of Louisiana as maybe that lady knows what she's doing, and consequently where we need state assistance or federal assistance, I'm trying to get into a position where I will have that access, direct access, to improvements that can be made to the city, whether it be the highway system or the rail system, whatever the case may be. I would like to continue what I'm doing and do it to the best of my ability. And when and if I ever leave the city, I want the next guy to have an easier job than I had.
That was Mayor Debbie Pope of Hammond, Louisiana. Time now for our Something Extra segment, which this week features a program in Baton Rouge for underprivileged kids called the Big Buddy Program. The Big Buddy Program is a nonprofit organization that promotes youth opportunities among children in East Baton Rouge Parish.
To me, the Big Buddy Program is just simply words to denote people working together. Our whole philosophy and the whole way we're set up is just simply, we believe that all of us, everybody, has talents and skills that they can share with somebody else. And there are, in this city, a lot of kids who do not have people willing and able to share those kinds of talents and abilities. So our whole purpose is to just give kids opportunities to reach their potential.
How does it differ from the Big Brother program that we often hear about?
In some ways, it doesn't differ at all. The main difference is that we focus on the community. The kids that we serve basically come from given communities. We don't just provide the one-on-one, but we try to work with the kid apart from the one-on-one. We try to work with the kid in his group setting, in his community, in his school, and in his neighborhood.
So how do the kids benefit from the program?
You know, you change through role models, you change through seeing other people and knowing somebody who's special in your life. And all of us growing up had people who were special, you know, outside of our family. And that's what a Big Buddy is. It's somebody outside the family who is very special to that kid, and that kid looks up to that person, tries to emulate that person. In addition to the one-on-one, we try to work very close in the community where the kids live. Most of the kids come from single-parent families, low-income families. A lot of them come from public housing projects and areas in town where there's a lot of negative influences. You know, the parents may be outstanding parents, but when there's a lot of crime, when there's a lot of drugs and a lot of drinking in the streets where the kids live, they're going to grow up with too much of that inside of them and see too much that they shouldn't see. So we try to work in those communities to provide some positive activities, some athletic teams, some scouting, some other types of cultural activities that the kids can get involved in rather than get involved in the other things. One of the primary resources is also the schools. The schools have been outstanding in letting us come in and work with the kids, in the school setting and providing activities at the school and after school.
One of the volunteers in the program is Michelle Chamberlain. She is a big buddy to 12-year-old Tamika McGee.
My little buddy's name is Tamika, and I feel a part of her life because I feel she relies on me. She calls me if she has a problem. She calls me to help her with her homework. She lets me know what things she wants to do that week. I leave it pretty much up to her, and I just feel sort of like a sister to her in a way.
To the park, feed the ducks, cook, to her house, McDonald's.
Do you like going out with your big buddy? Tell us why.
Because I love her.
Very rewarding, and it makes, it's not something selfish because you're not really doing it for yourself, you're doing it for someone else. And when you see that child and you see how excited she is when you come to pick her up and when you take her somewhere that she really enjoys, and just being with her, and you're needed, and it's just a part of your life, and as it develops you just get more and more out of it each time.
8-year-old Portrell Williams is another of the little buddies.
We go places, we go camping.
What kinds of things do you do on your camping trips?
We go marshmallows, a swing, songs, and singing at night.
Do you like the Big Buddy program?
Yeah,
Why do you like it?
it's fun.
10-year-old Chashamba Rogers and 11-year-old Gerard Tillotson are two players on one of the basketball teams sponsored by the Big Buddy program. So how's your season gone so far?
All right.
Has the coach been working you pretty hard?
Yes, sir.
How so?
Make us run laps, a lot of laps.
How much practice do you guys put into Chashamba?
A lot.
What's a lot? Every day?
Yeah.
Do you like this Big Buddy program?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me why. Well, if you weren't playing basketball, what would you be doing?
Outside playing basketball.
Outside playing basketball. How can the community get involved in the Big Buddy program?
There's a lot of ways the community can get involved, primarily through volunteers. There's a lot more kids than there are volunteers. And the more volunteers we can get, the more kids we can serve. Also, just the other youth agencies, the schools, their involvement. We, in and of ourselves, as I mentioned, are not an organization looking to be an organization. We're an organization looking to serve kids. And any way that other organizations can come in contact with us, or we can come in contact with them to serve better or to serve more, that's what community involvement is, and that's what, we strive for.
Now, if you want more information about the Big Buddy program, you can write the folks there at 333 East Chime Street, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70802, or phone area code 504-388-9737. It really is a very rewarding program for everyone involved. Well, that's our program for this week. Thanks for watching. February is Black History Month, and next week we'll be featuring a special segment to run the entire month entitled Pause for Pride. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Funding for the production of Folks is provided in part by the Friends of LPB.